All right, I hope everybody can hear me. It seems like they can. This is David, and this is going to be a game analysis of my first game in the Castle Chess Grand Prix. So I competed in the Castle Chess Grand Prix this last weekend, and I was able to win first place, 3 wins, 2 draws, no losses, ton of excitement. I mean, it was crazy. And every single game had something cool going on with it. Or there was some tense moments at the end of one of my games. One of my opponents like kind of slammed the table because it was super tense, motion tied game. I had some games go 4 hours. I offered a sacrifice. I either sacrificed something or offered a sacrifice in all but one. No, in every single game, I at least tried to sacrifice something. Sacrifice was offered, so each game was intense. There were no easy games. It was a real tough tournament. Respect to everybody that showed up. But yeah, one of my best accomplishments for sure. Just recently became an expert, and then I won the expert section, so that was really nice. All right, so let's get into this first game. I'm going to release one video for each game. Definitely tune in for game two. Game two was insane, literally insane. So yeah, but this first game was also a good start. So I was playing a kid named Albert Liang, pretty strong chess player. I've only played Albert once before, and it was when I was just getting back into chess. Late, very late 2014, like maybe December of 2014. That or yeah, I think it was like December 2014. It's like my first chess tournament after taking a decent break from chess, or at least a 2 year break from chess. And yeah, I lost pretty badly. And Albert's been up to 2100. He's been around the 2100 range. He's drew 2300s. He's a strong kid. He's a solid kid. So first round, I was actually playing up. He's rated nearly 2100. 2090 was at the time of this game, and so I was white, so that was nice. That was something good. So let's get into what actually happened. So I opened with e4, and okay, that's just standard move. c5, knight f3, e6. We go into what's called the con Sicilian. By the way, you guys can see on the screen, Lee Chess has their little opening database here. This isn't on ChessBase, and if you haven't got the chance to check out Lee Chess, go to leechess.com. They have a whole or .org. They have a whole bunch of awesome features for free. Under the Learn tab, you can do tactics puzzles, and they also have this really cool feature called Study, which is almost kind of like a chess-based type thing, where you can input anything from opening variations to your own games, and you can annotate them really easily, create PGNs and such like that. So it's a really nice tool. Anyway, that's what we're using right now, the Lichess Study tool. I'm not going to turn on the engine arrows or anything like that. I've already checked the game, so I'll just talk to them. So this is just normal con Sicilian. The con Sicilian to me it can be a little bit scary because there's a whole bunch of different move order finesses and such that black can do. And so if somebody's really prepared from the black side and you don't really know what you're doing from the white side, things can get a little bit messy. But in general, it's just good to develop. So a6 is played. This move normally stops operations with knight b5 that will lead to Maroczy type structures, in which case white will have a pawn on c4 and such like that. And black will have a hedgehog set up with pawns on d6, e6 and such. But this kind of says that black is not exactly looking to go into those Maroczy type games. So I played bishop d3. This move may look weird. Why not bishop c4? Bishop c4 can get hit with things like b5 or d5 later, and bishop e2 seems a little bit passive, so bishop d3 is nice. Sometimes this bishop will work later. Farther down in the game, white will bring his queen to f3 to h3, and then sometimes that pawn will be pushed to e5 to attack a knight on f6 and open up an attack on h7. So bishop d3 is generally a good move. Queen c7 was played. Here, if knight c3, I think bishop b4 is possible, so I actually just castled, got my king safe. And I've played this line before, and I've found it's pretty comfortable for white. Knight c3 was played, and then I captured. And the idea in capturing is normally it's captured back like this. D takes c6. Or excuse me, no, wow. Normally it's captured back like this. B takes c6. And then you play c4. And the idea is the whole point of white's or black's plan is to play d5 because, I mean, what else would you do? Would you going to put the pawn on d6? You're going to leave the pawn back there and keep on your bishop. So black needs to play d5. And white pretty much makes it, how do you say, uncomfortable to play d5. So, for instance, you play d5 right now and open up the game, your king's going to be in the center. Let's imagine knight f6, knight c3, d5, take, 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 take. And I will turn on the computer right about here just to give a little hint of what's going on. And you'll see that the advantage is about +1 for white with that's a pretty sizable advantage. And it's actually saying don't even recapture the pawn, just try to get developed. But yeah, this line is simply not good for black. And taking the pawn alone also doesn't lead to anything good. Even higher, +1, almost +2. Just developing the pieces. White's just way too developed. So instead, though, Albert played something I hadn't actually seen. Turn off the engine. He played d takes c6. And to me, this just struck me as it wasn't as combative. I will tell you that I was definitely less worried about the game because sometimes I'm worried about like if they have specific prepping lines or such. But in a position like this, white really can't be worse. White's just more developed. I have a completely castled king. My bishop's developed, and black's king is not castled. None of his pieces are developed. I have a pawn farther than their pawn, so I felt pretty comfortable here. So here I played bishop e3 with the idea of simply stopping black's bishop from getting to that diagonal. And you'll notice for this part of the game, I decided to take an approach of really locking down the queen side and trying to play really on the dark squares. Here he played e5, which makes sense. He needs to get his light squared bishop in the game. And here I played knight d2. So if I were to play knight c3, notice that would be kind of pointless because where's the knight going? The knight can't ever go to d5, can't really do anything with b5. Knight a4 to b6 is an idea, but a4 or a5 is also an idea, and that would kind of run into those two ideas that kind of clash with each other. So knight d2, on the other hand, brings the idea of bringing the knight to c4 and then possibly to b6, or even just pressuring the pawn on e5 or something like that. So that was the idea behind this move, just putting the knight on a nice square. Knight f6 was played, f3 was played to stop knight g4, bishop e6 was played, getting some just developing his bishop, getting in the game. Oh, and by the way, before we get too far, in this position, I also want it to make it known that if the move b5 is played, you'll see that just by simply attacking these pawns, white gets a crazy initiative. So b5 was played. I was planning to play a4, and then let's say bishop b7, because currently the b5 pawn is threatened due to the rook on a8 being pinned. So in other words, or the pawn on a6 being pinned. So pawn takes, bishop takes, the rook's going to be pinned. So bishop b7. All right, take, and then c4, continue attacking. And notice how my bishops are both pointing towards the queen side. My rook's operating on the queen side. Black's queen sitting there and possibly be served as a tempo gain. An example line is b4, c5, threatening queen a4, picking up the pawn. Knight f6. If a5, trying to protect the pawn, we have bishop b5 check, bishop c6, queen a4, take, here, c6, and you get the drift. This is just completely winning for white. Black's going down in a flame. White's advantage in development is clearly shown. I didn't calculate all this out, but I did calculate that after this position, I pretty much assessed in my head that black was near busted, which was correct. So it would not have been a good idea for black to try to press forward and push his pawns. Black really needs to get developed, hence knight f6. So again, f3, bishop here, queen e2, again focusing on that c4 square. Also with the bishop coming out, the light squared bishop coming out before the dark squared bishop, the idea of castling queenside was in the position, so also removing the queen off the d-file. Bishop e7, and now a4. And my idea was pretty much I wanted to put my pawn on a5 and my knight on c4, or even better, put my pawn on a5, put my bishop on c4, get rid of black's good bishop, replace that piece with a knight on c4 once I trade off the bishops, and have a really nice dark squared clamp. And that was the positional idea. So after castles, I continued with my plan. Now here, to be honest, I was expecting knight h5, after which I was completely content with just playing g3. And although this move looks a little bit weakening, it's really not that weakening. It's totally worth controlling the f4 square, and there's no real way that black can exploit this little minute pawn move at the moment. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure the computer suggested for black to simply retreat in this position. So instead of that, bishop b4 was played. And bishop b4, I saw this move and I was like, whoa, did I miss this? I was kind of confused because I realized like he's just threatening to pick up my pawn. And then I realized, oh wait, I didn't miss it because, okay, bishop b6, obviously, like that's the move that comes to mind. Bishop b6 and then just c3, and where's the bishop going? But then I realized his plan. If I played bishop b6, then he can just play queen e7, and now he's threatening queen c5, getting rid of my good bishop, which is not good. So let's imagine I play queen f2. He has this move now, knight d7. And now all of a sudden, after my bishop retreats, just bishop c5, and now it's almost as if black has stolen my plan. Black's now putting his good bad bishop on the c5 square, and he's going to replace it with his knight, and that would not be good at all. So after bishop b4, I was actually kind of frustrated. I was like, wow, I missed this move. I play knight c4, I just lose a pawn. I was just unhappy. I wasn't quite... Well, at first I was unhappy, but at the same token, I felt somewhere this move just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like the right way for black to go about playing this position. Something about it just felt wrong. And after some thinking, some positionally minded thinking, I was able to come up with a really, really nice move that I like. And that move was bishop c4, exclam. This one was actually worth an exclamation mark, especially considering the circumstances. This also, I think, was the best move in the position. And this move comes with a little offering of a pawn, so a little pawn sacrifice. So after bishop c4, bishop takes a5, bishop takes e6. Notice this. If he continues to try to hold the pawn and plays fe6, which was not played in the game, then I can respond with knight c4. So now we've managed to get our knight to that powerful c4 square. After bishop b4, it was important to see in the calculations that c3 was necessary. c3, bishop e7, and then bishop b6. Now the only move that black can make to keep the control of the e5 pawn is queen back, and now rook d1. And white definitely has the advantage here, a very comfortable advantage. And it was clear to see that this is just terrible for black. Black's up a pawn, however, white has completely locked down all of his play. The e5 pawn is under fire, the knight's beautiful on c4, the bishop's beautiful on b6. White can continue, possibly double rooks in the d file. One of those pawns, the e pawns, are going to probably drop. The rook on a8 will never get into the game. This was just clearly better for white, and Albert didn't want to have anything to do with this. Albert saw the same line. So after bishop takes a5, bishop takes e6, Albert went with what I thought he was going to go for, which was bishop takes d2, bishop takes f7 here and here. So he basically declined the pawn sacrifice. Another way to find this move was the way I found bishop c4 was I kind of thought like, hey, what did I want to do in the position before? And I was like, well, my plan was to just trade off his good bishop and put my knight on c4. And then I looked and noticed, well, that plan was actually positionally so strong that even with losing the a-pawn, it was just completely dominating. So, again, he instead had to get rid of the knight, allowing me to get a pawn, and then we reached this endgame. So this endgame looks very boring. However, white definitely has a slight pull. Very slight pull, but there's a slight pull for white. And the reason that is because of this weak pawn on e5 and also white's nice dark square pressure, led by that awesome dark squared bishop. The black knight really can't do much, and it really looks awkward on that f6 square because it's literally targeting absolutely nothing. However, white's bishop, on the other hand, is covering tons of dark squares, and that weak pawn is on a dark square. So, rook d8 was played. Now I played another move I was a fan of. I looked at a few moves here, but after some thinking, I found that queen a5 really appealed to me. And the idea was, if he played something like, for instance, queen d6, I was going to play rook a3, bringing my rook into the battle. So currently I'm threatening rook d3, which would be really bad. So let's imagine queen e7. And then I was going to play rook b3. So now I have pressure on e5 and pressure on b7. I'm already threatening rook takes b7 as a threat. And Liang could continue rook d7, rook c3, queen here. And notice how white can really just load his pieces up on all of black's weaknesses. Something like this. In which case, black's just going to be tied down. The other rook can even come over from a1 and join in. Rook a1, a5 can even join into the battle. So, yeah. Well, basically, black could have gotten tied down. Albert said after the game that when I played queen a5, he basically realized that if he retreated his queen, that my queen was going to be much stronger than his, so he decided to take. Now we again reach a position with less pieces on the board, and that weakness on e5 is still there. So rook e7 was played. And now, see if you can find a good way for white to proceed here. See if you can find a good plan for white. I've already mentioned this e5 weakness a few times, so see if you can find the best way to try to get at that weakness. Alright, you can pause if you want to do a little positional test if you're just watching, but bishop c5 is a really nice way to get at that pawn. He played rook e6 and then just bishop b4, simply enough, controlling the d2 square so there's no invasion and just putting the bishop on the c3 square. The bishop was no longer needed on the g1 to a7 diagonal, so now it was used to attack the e-pawn. And this actually made matters pretty annoying for black. So king f7 was played, then just bishop c3. And really from this point on, black started to get in time pressure because it was becoming increasingly hard for black to make decisions, as you'll see going through the game. And for me, I started to make my moves very quickly. And I don't mean I didn't calculate them, but it was very easy to predict the only few moves black could make. And it was also very easy to figure out which moves were going to be needed to kind of increase the pressure. So I started making my moves relatively quickly, coming to the board, sitting for maybe like 2 minutes, making my move, and just leaving, allowing him to try to solve his own problems. And that led to time pressure down the road. So he defended this way. I actually think this was inaccurate. To be honest, I thought just knight d7. And even though I get to pin the knight and the king comes over, and then maybe like king f2, for instance, black is completely tied up. But I thought maybe this offered a little bit of a bit better shot. Anyway, after rook e8, leaving the d file, I took the d file. Why not? He played rook e7. His idea was to play rook d7, but as we will soon see, there's a flaw with that plan. So I just played king f2 because I saw the flaw in his plan. He played rook d7, and then see if you can find what's not so good about this plan. All right? Take a little pause, see if you can find what's not the greatest thing about this idea. All right, spoiler. Well, basically, I just played rook e1, calm. And I said, hey, look, your pawn's still hanging. You can't play knight d7 because your rook's there. What are you going to do? And I just made my move, left the board. I knew he was probably going to play rook d7. Sure enough, I came back after a while, and he repeated. So now he basically just lost a move. I just played king e3 and just continued ahead. Here he played knight d7, bringing the knight back. And I played, actually, before I play that move, I just want to explain why I played this move. Now, notice that beforehand, in this position, the king cannot come to e6 because rook takes e6 as a threat, or bishop takes e6. But after knight d7, now black wants to play king e6 because he's got two pieces defending it. So knowing that black wanted to play king e6, especially in positions like this where there's no like mating attack, but you're still trying to win, you're trying to press a small advantage, it's very important to be as annoying as possible. You need to get into your opponent's head, see what they want to do, and then stop them from doing exactly that. So I saw he wanted to play king e6, so I said, you know what? I was almost about to play rook d1, but then I said, wait a minute. He wants to play king e6. Let's make this annoying as I could possibly be. So I played bishop b4 here, forcing the rook to e6, and now I went rook to d1. Just messing up his plans. Just completely messing with them. So you may notice c5 is currently possible, but I never mind if he plays c5 because that just leaves a weak c-pawn. Now I'll just play rook d5 later. So he played rook d8, and now I just played a simple improving move. So this was a part of chess that's called cat and mouse. And cat and mouse is basically when you have a nice position, and especially if you can, if your opponent's lower on time, you need to try to kind of prolong it as long as possible. Just make slow improving moves. Don't do anything too fast. Take your time. It's called cat and mouse. And so this was one of those moments. So in other words, the idea behind rook d2 was simply that, let's say in this position, if he played rook h6, I might have to play h3. And I want it one day to go g3 and f4, possibly one day. So by playing rook d2, if he plays rook h6 now, I can just play g3 a little bit earlier, and then his rook has to come back. He's only helped me out. So again, slow improving move. And again, look at black's position. What can black do here that doesn't create a weakness? So again, he had to take forever to try to find some sort of move that was worthwhile. He came up with king e8, which, I mean, hey, it's a sad move, but what to do? And then, there again, slow improving move. And I made this move relatively fast again. I've seen it I wanted to do in the future. The idea was, in some lines, if he ever plays knight b6, there's a giant fork sitting on c4, so just b3. I just basically got rid of that problem. Here, he lashed out and played c5. And now it's like, okay, there's another weakness to work with. I can now work with the weak e-pawn and the weak c-pawn. So I played bishop c3 and then b5. I will admit I missed this move. For whatever reason, I thought that the a6 pawn would be hanging, but at the same token, this is still fine for me. So I played rook d5, just sliding in basically, tying down again the rook and the knight. He played rook over to c8. And again, I actually had a good think here because, to be honest, I was not expecting this b5, c5 push, and I'd been moving relatively quickly, so I had to kind of reassess the position and make sure I was getting my plans in order. And at the end of the day, I came up with rook a1, which was one of the best moves in the position, just simply sending the rook over to the d file. And yeah, that was basically the idea, just tying his position down a little bit more, pressuring the knight. And here he made a mistake. So it's becoming obvious that he desperately needs counterplay. And by the way, at this time, he was in big time pressure. He was, I think, below 5 minutes at this point. So he was really low on time, didn't have a lot of time to think at all. And so, okay, when I was coming over to the D file, now, he needs counterplay and he needs it fast. The way for him to get counterplay was to play b4. And the idea of b4 is simply, it's obvious that he would like to push the c-pawn. But if he pushes the c pawn now, I can just play b4 and close everything up. So as black, if you play, if you play b4 first, and then this was my plan actually. I was going to do this, which is a really nifty move because if he takes my bishop, I go into a way better rook ending. And if he doesn't, he actually can't afford to move his knight, or if he does move his knight, I can play rook takes e5, and his rook's hanging, so he has to exchange. So in other words, moving his knight loses a pawn, so he has to defend the knight, and then I can move my bishop. But yeah, the idea of playing b4 first is that you're able to play c4 later. So I'd play bishop e1 in an event to try to save c4, or try to stop c4. But you can see an example because if I went to bishop, let's say bishop b2, now c4, and all of a sudden he's coming into the position. Still better for white, but at the same token, you can see that black is starting to get a little bit of something. Like he can actually play with something. But he messed up. He went c4 himself, and it didn't take long to make this decision. I just played b4, and now his counterplay was really shut up. So he played king e7. What else to do? I played rook d1, just pressuring the knight. There's not much he can do here. He played rook c7, and now, with him desperately in time pressure, very, very low on time, I finally started trying to open things up. So I played g3. Just not playing f4, just hinting at the idea of playing f4. I don't even have to play f4 next. And you could see visibly that he was he didn't really know what to do, and he knew he was low on time. He played g5, which is just the move I wanted to see. And now, rook g1. So I switched plans. Instead of playing f4, now my plan was to play h4, open up the g file, and then invade with the rook. And notice how tied down black is. Again, his knight can't move. His rook can't move. He just now got his rook on c7 free, so that's the piece he moves. He plays rook c7 to c6. Now to h4, take. Now you notice his king can't even move. Rook g7 is now currently a threat. Or like his king can't move away from the knight. Rook g7 is a threat. If king f6, I can take the knight. And also, if his king ever goes to f6, I will always have f4. So he played knight f8, basically protecting the h7 pawn and allowing his king to possibly run. But again, a king to f6 just runs in f4. Very low on time at this point. Again, barely any time left. And now I just coolly played h5. I didn't even take the e5 pawn. It's not going anywhere, so what's the point? Instead, I wanted to try to make things as unpredictable and as hard for him to solve as possible. So h5 deprives him of the g6 square, allows my rook clean in, and just basically passes the ball in his court again. So we played rook h6. I don't know, it was a weird move, but again, he has 0 time, so I came in with rook g7, just invading. Again, I can take that pawn whenever. He played king f6. I played bishop takes e5, king e6, bishop f4, just hitting the rook. The rook ran, rook here check, king over, and now rook e7. Only move here is rook takes f4. He thought for a while, again flustered, played knight e6, and then the game was over after this checkmate sequence went down. Discovered attack for the win. Good mate. It needs to be said, though, that in this position, instead of knight f8, which he played knight f8 here, but instead of knight f8, I thought rook g6 may have offered a little bit more resistance, because the ending after takes, here, it's generally a good rule of thumb that if you're losing and you can try to get into a rook pawn ending, try it out. This is probably still losing, but at least maybe black might have some fantasy ideas of getting rid of the c2 pawn and having a pass c pawn always at the run. So I think this is probably a better chance for him, something for him to go for. And again, the counterplay idea earlier with playing b4, that would have also been a pretty nice idea for him to go through. But all in all, this was a very nice first round game. It was just a really nice positional game. We see, again, going through the game that there was not really any major attacking themes, but really this game was just focusing on square color complexes. And for instance, this star move, bishop c4, was the move that really kind of, I think, turned the tables a little bit, allowing for possibly sacrificing a pawn, but at the end of the day, really just getting rid of his good bishop and putting us in a situation, or me in a situation, where the dark squares were going to be mined. And even after the queens came off, basically white was able to completely tie down black, and black had a lot of trouble actually trying to figure out what to do with his pieces, how to use his pieces. Meanwhile, white just slowly improved his position. As time went on, black created weaknesses, wasn't able to find counterplay, and just when all time was low, white was able to open the position, flood in the position, and the coordination combined with black's position just falling apart led to a nice Good old-fashioned checkmate. So that was my round one game. It was a good game to finish. Start off with low stress, easy game. Well, okay, I don't want to say easy game, but I will say I felt like my position played itself at some points. Just really the theme of the game was just exploiting weaknesses, just trying to be annoying, taking that small advantage and pressing that small advantage, making it tough for your opponent. And yeah, it was a good way to start. So yeah, this was game one. And tune in next time because game two is definitely not one you want to miss. It is a pretty interesting game. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, guys, and I'm going to end the broadcast now. All right, bye-bye.